I'd like to call the school board meeting to order of Independent School District 482 this November 12th, 2020. Let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which
one nation under God,
one nation
indivisible,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. District mission statement: Little Falls Community Schools promote personal and academic excellence in a collaborative, safe, and engaging environment. Our first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda with the addendum?
Mr. Lager, Mr. Gerby, you need to unmute.
Well,
There you go.
There we go. I need
I
a.
thought you muted me. I'll make that motion.
We tried. Motion by Mark, second by Jay, to approve the agenda with the addendum as printed. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
please note that neither Stacy Gold nor Jessica Jansky and Haley Olson will present tonight.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll vote. Brad,
Yes.
Jay,
yes,
Mark,
Yes.
Julie, and myself, yes. So motion is carried. So we'll move right to number 5, the presentation by Janelle Bitson on the audit for 2019-2020.
Janelle, can you hear us?
Yeah, can I share my screen?
I can see you.
You should be able to share it, Janelle.
Okay.
there you go.
Perfect.
You guys see that? Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you once again for the opportunity to be here to present with you all tonight. We have a summary of the fiscal 20 audit for you. The first thing that I wanted to cover with you tonight are the audit reports. We issue four reports as part of our audit presentation. The first one being the independent auditor's report. This report does state that the financial statements are management's responsibility, and that's where you're relying on Shelley and her team to pull all this information together. And then our responsibility is to express an opinion based on the results of our audit. We did issue an unmodified opinion on the statements. It states that they present fairly in all material respects. And this is what's considered a clean opinion or the best opinion that you can receive on your statements. The second report is a report that we issue in accordance with government auditing standards. These standards require us to look at the internal controls that you have over the financial reporting process. We did have one item to report to you tonight, and that relates to the segregation of accounting duties. And this is something that you've seen in the past, and it just relates to the small staff that you have within your office and kind of the cost benefit of adding additional people. The third report we issue is our report in accordance with uniform guidance. This is where we're looking at your compliance with federal dollars that you received during the year. This year we did test the child nutrition cluster. And again, we issued an unmodified on this report as well. So another clean report. Also wanted to point out that last year you did have an internal control finding when it came to the single audit or the federal dollars relating to procurement, and wanted to note that those items were taken care of and that was no longer a issue during 2020.
Okay.
And then the last report we issue is our report in accordance with Minnesota legal compliance. Each year the state auditor's office gives us a list of statutes that they want us to test compliance with, and again, another clean report on this section. We had no items of non-compliance to report to you. So then moving into our charts and graphs, the first one we have here is your ADM numbers. This table shows your resident ADM part of the table, and then with some adjustments for the open enrollment, and then your total ADM served. So for 2020, you did have a decrease of about 96.7 resident ADMs and an overall decrease of 88.6 ADM served. And so this graph charts out that same information, so you can see the decline that you have in 2020. Those ADM numbers are then converted to pupil unit numbers with the different weighting factors, and your state aids are paid differently based on some of those weighting factors. And so your adjusted pupil unit number decreased about 96.05, and again, that related to the decrease in residents that you had. Also wanted to point out that the residents going elsewhere, that number also decreased. So the overall net loss that you have on open enrollment did decrease in 2020. And then this graph just kind of charts out the change that you've had in your resident ADM and your adjusted pupil units for the last 5 years. So slight increases in 2019 and then followed by decreases in both in 2020, as I mentioned. And then looking at the budget to actual information, as a board, you approved the original and final amended budgets as a directive to management as to where you wanted to see the general fund come out. The amended budget called for an increase in the general fund balance of about $749,000, and the actual was an increase of just over $1 million. So about $276,000 better than you had anticipated. Your revenues were about $196,000 over budget, or within 0.7% of where you had budgeted. And then your expenditures were $574,000 over budget. Offsetting the overage in the expenditures is the other financing sources you can see towards the bottom of this table. And those are the lease proceeds that you received kind of to cover those costs of those items that you purchased under lease. So overall, as I mentioned, you did outperform your budget by about $276,000. Looking at the revenues for the general fund, in total, your revenues increased about $639,000 in 2020. You did see increases in the property tax levy, and then the other sources, that category includes your local revenues. Most of that was, the increase for this year was student activities, which are now reported in your general fund. And then your federal dollars are also in that category, and you saw an increase in federal special education this year as well. This next graph kind of charts out that same information. The blue section of that bar is your state sources of revenue, which in total are about 81% of your total general fund revenues, just to put that in perspective for you. This next pie chart shows your allocation of expenditures by program within the general fund. Overall, expenditures decreased about 0.5%, so fairly consistent from the prior year to 2020. As are the percentages, the allocation percentages, very consistent from where you had spent them from year to year. This next table shows your general fund revenues per ADM served. For 2020, the number did increase as you had an increase in both revenues and a decrease in ADM. For 2019 and prior, we do have some state averages in there that you can compare those fund totals. The general fund, you've historically been below the state average in the general fund, and the largest component of that is what you're bringing in for property taxes compared to the average district in the state. And then a similar table for the expenditures per ADM. Again, for 2020, your numbers did increase with a decrease in the ADMs that you had. And then 2019 and prior, again, we have that state comparison. And this is for districts of similar size to yours. So again, you're below that average. And that's largely attributed to you bringing in less revenues per ADM, so you have less dollars to spend per ADM. And then these graphs chart out that similar information just in another format. This next table here shows your general fund operations for the last 5 years. For 2020, you did have an increase in revenues and a decrease in expenditures. Revenues exceeded expenditures by $371,000. And then you had some other financing sources, the lease proceeds and some insurance recoveries. And the change in accounting principle line, that's the student activities that were being put into the general fund, as well as some of the scholarship dollars and other funds that were previously reported elsewhere. So overall, you did have an increase in your general fund balance of about $1.3 million. Most of that increase went into the restriction category. The bottom half of the table here breaks out the different components of your fund balance. And so again, most of that restriction went into most of the increases went into your restrictions for LTFM and student activities, which is a new restriction for you this year. And then your unassigned fund balance increased about $246,000. And those are the dollars that you have available for spending. This next table just charts out your unrestricted fund balance as a percentage of unrestricted expenditures. You did see an increase in that number for 2020. You're at about 14.8%. 2017 was kind of the low point for the district, and you've been rebuilding that over the last 3 years. You can see that that number has increased. And then the food service fund. Operations changed significantly during 2020, and much of that related to COVID and the distance learning. During that time, you were able to offer free meals to your students, so you had a significant increase in revenues as the federal monies were used to reimburse you for those meals. And then on the expenditure side, you saw increases just with the cost of serving those meals and the different types of meals, ones that could be delivered to your students. And then also some capital equipment purchases during 2020. And when all was said and done, you did have an increase in fund balance in that fund of about $365,000. And then similarly on the community service fund, you had, well, opposite actually, a decrease in your revenues and expenditures as some of those programs weren't being able to run during that COVID or distance learning time. So you did have an excess expenditures exceeding revenues for the first time in the 5 years presented. So overall, your fund balance did decrease by about $12,000. The community education fund balance, however, if you look at the different components down at the bottom half of the table, that restricted fund balance did decrease about $59,000. And again, much of that is going to be related to those programs that could not operate during that time frame. So kind of a quick summary of 2020. I'm certainly open to any questions that any of you might have.
Anyone have any questions for Janelle?
Janelle Bradlager, we're just in such a state of flux. Is there anything that we should be aware of going from last year's budget to this year's budget that could change that you're aware of, making us look into the crystal ball on that?
I guess I don't know that I have any insight that you guys don't already have. You know, there are the additional federal funds that I think you've already probably spent a good chunk of them, and I don't know if there'll be new ones coming down the line. That's kind of the new thing, and it's kind of up in the air too. I know many districts are going through changes now with, again, changing to the distance learning already this year. So, yeah.
Anyone else have any questions? Hearing none, I want to thank you, Janelle, for doing this for us. It's always very thorough, and I don't always know all the numbers, but I like to compare from year to year, and I think that's kind of what everyone does. And as Brad said, with COVID this year, there's a lot of unknowns with the future, and I guess all we can do is use the best information we have at the time. So thank you.
Yep, thank you. And I just, again, want to thank Shelley and her team for all the work that they put into the audit. This year we did it all remote, so it's a little bit of a different process and probably a little bit more work on their end. So we do appreciate that. And then again, just to the board for the opportunity to work with the district again, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to Shelley too. Okay, no other questions. We'll move on to item number 6.
Madam Chair.
Oh,
Brad,
we have to approve it. Yep. Is there a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, Brad Lager, so moved.
Is there a second to approve the audit?
Second.
Jay seconded. Any discussion? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote. Brad,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Julie, and myself, yes. So the audit has been approved for the 2019-20 school year. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would just like to take this time to thank our administration and our finance department. We went into this totally blinded, not knowing where we're going to end up, and to increase our budgets or our reserve funds and stuff is a compliment to their dedication. And as a board member, I want to say that I really, really appreciate, through all of the mess that we've had to do to come out with a very nice financial report on this end is exemplary. So thanks, Steve, and thanks, Shelley, and all of you people that work with them to do this. You did a great job.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to item 6. I don't believe there are any public comments, are there, Julie? Okay, we'll move to item number 7, the consent agenda, which includes personnel, approval of prior meeting minutes, and approval of financial transactions. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Mark made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Brad. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Brad,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Julie, yes, and myself, yes. So consent agenda is approved. We'll move to resolution for acceptance of gifts. And since Sharon isn't here, I've tabbed it, so I'll read it. Member Adamick introduced the following resolution and moved its adoption. Whereas the following have generously offered to donate to Little Falls Community Schools. Therefore, be it resolved by the Little Falls Community Schools Board of Education to gratefully accept the gifts. Catherine Adamick, donation of $444 to the Randall Area Scholarship Fund. Beverly and Richard Colshaw, donation of $100 to the food program. Zion Lutheran Women, donation of $100 to Dr. S.G. Knight's Social Work Fund. Zion Lutheran Women, donation of $100 to the Lincoln Social Work Fund. Zion Evangelical Lutheran Church, donation of $221 to the Flyer Pride Pack Weekend Food Backpack Program. Coburn's Incorporated, and I believe these next 4 are all per the scoreboard advertising agreement. So we have a donation of $5,000 from Coburn's, Marco, a donation of $5,000, Brandel Motors, donation of $5,000, and Pine Country Bank donation of $5,000, and they were all for the scoreboard advertising agreement. Next, we have care closet donations. We have 3 of them. Living Hope Assembly of God, donation of $100. Linda and Larry Oman, donation of $100. Diane LaRue, donation of $100. And those were all to the care closet. The Albert Toma Family Endowment, donation of $14,487.25 to Little Falls Community Schools. The following have all donated to the DECA program. $200 in trade from Range Printing for DECA t-shirts, $200 in trade from Froggy's Signs for decals and banner, $200 from Spear Chiropractic, $200 from Pine Country Bank, $200 from Whole Products, $200 from Edward Jones Little Falls branches, $200 from Design Electronics Radio Shack, $200 from Angie Peterson, Keller Williams Realty, $200 from Central Minnesota Credit Union, $200 from Little Falls Machine, $200 from the Little Falls Granite Works, $200 from Mid-Minnesota Federal Credit Union, $200 from Burnix Pepsi, $125 from Hanneken Insurance, $125 from Contegrity Group, $125 from RTO Certified Public Accountants, and $50 from Coburn's. I need a second to the resolution. Is there a second to the resolution?
Jay will second that resolution.
Okay, a second by Jay. Any questions or discussions before we vote? Hearing none. Brad?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Julie? Yes. And myself, yes. And we certainly want to thank all those generous people and organizations that contributed to our school system. And we will move to reports from board members. We'll start with Brad.
Madam Chair, I don't have any at this time. I just pray that we get through the situation we're in and as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Mark?
Nothing to report.
Jay?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Julie? Nothing at this time. And my only report would be to thank everyone involved in the education of our children, because it's certainly been a time that's very trying, requires a lot of patience, a lot of effort from everyone. So I just want to thank parents, teachers, administrators, paras, bus drivers, custodians, everyone involved, because it's a lot of work and we truly appreciate it. We'll move on to superintendent's report.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you. Just want to visit with you about our current situation, about what's happening in Morrison County and Little Falls Community Schools and in our region, and of course our state and across the nation, and what's going to be our impact here in Little Falls. You know, it's a challenge every day. I mean, even in good times, working with kids and community and families through very challenging and difficult issues is always makes each day worthwhile coming. This adds a whole nother level of complexity to it, and it's really we're kind of on the brink. We're kind of balancing and teetering for a number of reasons, and of course the ones that you know about are the numbers that you see every day with cases and as the predictions get more dire and dire over the last 10 days in terms of cases in the state breaking records every day, and the major increase in hospitalizations and concerns in rural sections of Minnesota and the country of running out of hospital spaces. All of those things are very, very real. We can't stop or censure our folks from seeing those kinds of announcements. And, unfortunately, we've learned that coronavirus is a political situation as much as a public health situation, and that adds complexity to it as well. And so we as the district try to continue to do things in a manner that keeps all of that other stuff out of it. And we really truly look at those things that impact us and should impact us the most going forward. The reality of it is we are seeing more and more infections within the personnel of the school system, whether it's students or staff. We're certainly seeing many, many more quarantines because of exposure to someone who's tested positive. And that is really rearing its head in two areas. Obviously, the student piece of it, but even more detrimental to trying to operate a school system every day is the staff piece of it. And I'm going to tell you point blank that we as a district have chosen to be proactive and cautious as we deal with personnel related to the school, whether it's students or staff. And that means that we aren't messing around. If there's any risk of exposure, we are quarantining people, and that leads to a day like today, where we have well over 50 people, 50 adults out of our building today. The vast majority of it due to COVID issues, not all, but still, even on a normal day, as you all know, we have people gone. That still happens even in COVID world. And so this week, we have seen that number as a fairly constant number. Aaron and I met today, and it's just like, I don't know how we're able to make this work with these constant absences due to issues like this. And again, please know I'm not complaining. I'm not blaming. I'm not pointing a finger at anybody. That's just the reality that we and every other district in central Minnesota are dealing with. We entered distance learning a couple of weeks ago at a time that our cases in Morrison County were exploding. As we've come out of distance learning this week, what we're seeing is many, many more districts entering distance learning platform at some level, either at the secondary, at the elementary, or across the entire district. The reason are exactly what I'm talking about. I was on a call today with probably 20, 25 superintendents, and they all point their finger at the staffing piece as being the toughest one to face. And I'm going to tell you, we're better than most simply because we take more advantage of our technology opportunities. Today I looked, we had 11 teachers teaching remotely. In other words, they were at home because of quarantines, but they're still teaching their classes remotely. Many school districts in the state can't offer that and do what we're doing in that respect. And that is, in a strange way, kind of hiding some of our exposure to not having our teachers in the classroom every day. But the fact is, as we look forward to the next couple of weeks, we're seeing as we approach the holiday season, the potential for greater risk of additional exposures to students and staff really kind of unabated. We were on a call, or Kevin Jordan was on a call yesterday with the Granite Ridge Conference. All 7 other schools in the Granite Ridge are entering distance learning next week. More and more schools in Region 5 are entering distance learning. And please know that, I hope you know, I've never been one that just because somebody else is doing it, we have to do it. But I just want you to be aware that there are resources out there for us that are driving us to have to seriously take a look at some things. Just as we walked in tonight, another phone call from another staff member, a positive COVID case within their family, which means that person's out for 14 days. And this is what's happening to us on a daily basis, multiple times. So it's more than likely that we may have to have a meeting next week. And throughout the weekend, I'll keep you abreast of where we're at. But one day without enough staff in the building is one day too many. And I'm at a serious juncture here where we are getting close to that point where I'm not waking up in the morning with a lot of confidence that we're going to have all the adults we need in the building. And I'm going to tell you, we've done a heck of a job in trying to fill the gap. You'll hear from Aaron Sinclair here in a little bit on a proposal we want to make to you. We have tried to hire as many COVID support specialists as we possibly can. But ultimately, it comes down to being able to provide the best opportunity for our kids to learn and grow in the best environment possible. And right now, that's becoming a really difficult thing to swear to you that it's happening with fidelity completely across our system simply because of the absences of staff related to COVID. I'll entertain any questions or comments you may have.
Steve, just so the public understands, what you're saying is if a teacher teaches remotely, we still have to have somebody in that classroom if they're at home to make sure the kids are supervised, and that's the people that you're talking about, right?
Especially at the elementary and middle school level, yes.
Correct.
Yes. We feel that high schoolers have the ability to not have to have somebody in there full time, but we certainly have people checking in to make sure that they're on task. But you know, the good thing about the remote system is that the teacher can see them and they can see the teacher. So the teacher has that ability to see what and who they're dealing with as well. So that's honestly been a fantastic addition to us. And as we talk about the things that we'll use after COVID's done, that's one. That is something that will remake the way that we teach, meaning that a teacher doesn't necessarily have to be in front of the kids all the time to be an effective educator. We're learning that through this. When we're doing it with kindergartners, which has happened in our district, it's pretty amazing, to be honest with you. So our whole third grade at Lindbergh, all of our teachers are out because of an exposure. So our entire third grade this week has been taught remotely by the teachers at their home, teaching the third graders. It's been pretty cool to watch, to be honest with you.
Well, 55 staff members, I don't know how you guys can plug that. That's just amazing. And you know, the other thing maybe we can look at too is we may not need any snow days in the future. If this is successful, we should be able to teach during those days.
Yep, and that'll be, I will be coming to you in December with a makeup day and then that conversation as well. But yeah, we should not, honestly, going forward, need one. But you're exactly right, Brett.
Well, thanks for the effort you're doing, and our other officer, Human Resources, is obviously doing a heck of a job to try and fill 55 people in a day.
Thank you, Brad.
I have a
Anyone else
question.
have any questions for Steve?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, Jay.
Steve, you said that when somebody has been exposed to the COVID or whatever, or somebody in their family has, they have to be 14 days in quarantine?
Yes.
Yep, 14 days. Yeah, you know, there's a couple instances where it can be 10, but the majority of it is 14 days.
Wow.
So we've actually had some people, Jay, who've been exposed twice. So they've had to be out twice, 14 days. So, you know, and again, as things continue to spread unabated in the community and in the state, you're going to see more and more of that. And so that takes a bite out of our human resources, no doubt.
Anyone else? Thank you, Steve. I'm amazed at what we're able to do. Okay, we'll move on to old or unfinished business. The approval of the 2021 school board meeting calendar. And I believe we had that calendar in our packet last time. So is there a motion to approve the 2021 school board calendar?
Madam Chair, Brad Lager, I make a motion that we approve the school board calendar as printed.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll happily make a second to that motion. This is
All
Jay.
right. I wonder why. Did you see they changed it to Sundays, Jay? Okay, are there any questions? Otherwise, we'll vote. Okay, Brad,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Julie? Yes. And myself, yes. So motion is carried to approve the school board meeting calendar. Item number 12 is new business, and the first item there is the approval of the teacher substitute rates effective November 15th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve the new teacher substitute rates effective November 15th, 2020?
I move that we accept that rates as presented by the administration for those.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Mark. All right, we'll have Aaron fill us in a little bit.
Yeah. Good evening, members of the board. What we're bringing forward tonight is actually really in direct response to what Steve just spoke about. Our approach to continue to fill our classrooms is really multifaceted. It's a combination of teaching remotely and COVID support specialists stepping in and constant shifting and moving of staff. And one of the pieces that we've also realized is our current teacher substitute rate hasn't been looked at, I believe, for about 4 years. So I'm looking at and doing some comparisons to the districts to the north and to the south of us, and especially the districts also utilizing teachers on call right now. We realized our daily rate was a little bit low. So what I'm bringing forward tonight is a proposal to increase our daily substitute rate to $120 per day, which would put us in line and be competitive with the other districts using teachers on call. And as we continue to go forward, my hope is maybe with this number being more competitive, we might be able to draw from teachers on call's broader pool to draw more subs to come to Little Falls. Possibly as other districts are in distance learning other formats, maybe we can position ourselves that way. So the only changes on the document before you is the daily substitute rate moving to $120 per day, and the retired teacher rate moving to $130 per day. The rest of the teacher substitute structure is the exact same that it has been for the last 3 years.
Anyone have any questions?
Is this going to raise the heck with our budget?
We believe at this point in time that we're going to be able to handle this going forward. It's not going to be retroactive. We're going to begin this as of November 15th. So it'll be as of, if approved, as Sunday going forward is how we'll facilitate it. Our substitute budget will be a number for us to watch as we go with the number of absences we're seeing. We'll look at it. Interestingly enough, though, the report that I got from teachers on call showed that our teacher I believe it was teacher and para absences were about 100 fewer to start the year than they were the year before. So we're seeing fewer planned absences, but the COVID absences, of course, are far exceeding anything we've experienced before.
And one other thing to remember is that with the COVID specialists that we've hired, those are brand new positions, and they actually are payable under the CARES Act through December 31st. So that won't necessarily come out of our budget per se. We'll see if that's extended after December 31st. I think obviously when the CARES money had that kind of a deadline, I think the government believed that it may be winding down. I don't think we're seeing that. And so it'll be interesting if there's a second round of those dollars available for schools as well.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah. If we've got a teacher that is back, is teaching from home because they're on quarantine, and what's the subpool thing? Does, that we're not hiring a teacher, we're hiring a person that covers a class? Does teachers on call have anything like that? Or do we have a pool of those people, or how is that operating?
Yep. So Brad, we have essentially 3 pools of people that we're utilizing. One is the traditional teacher sub. Another could be a paraprofessional sub, and another is the COVID support specialist position that we've created. So we're trying to leverage all 3 of those groups to try to get an adult in that classroom.
So as of today, Brad, just for example, with the number of people that we had gone today, we had 11 positions go unfilled today.
Jeez.
So at some time, it doesn't really matter what title they are. We just need bodies at certain times. So yes, I agree with you. If we had our druthers, we'd pick that way, but right now we're kind of out of druthers.
Amen. No, I understand. That's,
Yep.
I just didn't know if there might be some people that would qualify to be a supervisor in a room,
Yep.
but don't have a teaching license.
Yep, absolutely.
And that
Yep.
we could, if we could establish a pool of those people that could come on a quick basis to cover, you know, and I don't know if we've established a rate for that or not, but I don't know. I mean, with unemployment and stuff, maybe there's some people out there that, of course, we'd have to check, you know, make sure that they're clear of everything that we could do.
And Brad, that is essentially the COVID support specialist. That
Yep.
is exactly what you're describing. That's how they function.
So we already have that.
So we have a couple of kids that are that are in college that are now going distance learning in college that grew up here that are now coming back to work for us as COVID support specialists. So that's really what you're talking about, Brad, in that,
Yes.
in that instance. Yep.
Yes, yes.
So, you bet.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. Brad,
Yes,
Mark,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes,
Julie? Yes. Myself, yes, so that motion is passed. We will go to 12, the Community Services Report.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'll speak for LaJoy because LaJoy is filling in amazingly at Kids Corner. So even LaJoy in Community Services has to fill in where she is best needed. As Janelle mentioned during the audit, Community Services was the one area where we really took a hit. And it had everything to do with not being able to provide the programming that we normally provide. So the revenue was not there, but yet the expenses of 2 staff members who work full-time in community services was still there. If you look through the report, it's pretty easy to see all the red X's in the activities that didn't go. And those red X's are kids not being able to participate in activities because of what took place. That's the core of it, but then ultimately that impacts the bottom line. And so I can tell you from working with, with Steve Larson and now with LaJoy, we really do have a great community services department who do a lot of innovative things and really make things work. It's been a tough year on community services, and they want nothing more than to have kids involved in activities as we go forward. So I think LaJoy did a great job. Her staff does a great job, and the report in front of you is not indicative of the work that they're doing because it shows a lot of X's instead of activities.
Steve, just to add to that, one of the reasons for the lost fund balance is the inability to charge for
correct.
care services.
Yep.
For the tier 1, tier 2 employees. So they were providing childcare essentially March through June for free.
Yep.
So that was another reason for the huge decrease for
Yep. Thank you, Shelley.
expenditures over revenue.
Thank you, Shelley, for thinking of that. Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on since that was an information item, and I believe we already did the fiscal audit, so we'll move down to resolution for Minnesota State High School League Foundation grant application. And I'll see if I've got that one here. Someplace. Here we go.
Yep.
Member Adamick brought forth the resolution of the school board supporting the application to Minnesota State High School League Foundation. Whereas the Minnesota State High School League Foundation was formed to support Minnesota high school youth to participate in athletics and fine arts. Whereas the district Little Falls number 42 school board recognizes the value of said participation in extracurricular activities. And whereas the Minnesota State High School League Foundation is offering grants and funding to assist school districts in recognizing, promoting, and funding extracurricular participation by high school students in athletic and fine arts programs. Therefore, be it resolved that the District Number 42 School Board supports the district's application to the Minnesota State High School League Foundation for a Form A grant to offset student activities. We need a second for the foregoing resolution. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Jay.
Okay, second by Jay. Any questions or discussion before we vote? All right, we'll vote. Brad,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Julie? Yes. And myself, yes. So that resolution is passed. We will move to 12.5, first reading of the policies, and that's a non-action item.
Madam Chair, members of the board, just some policies for you to put just to bed at night.
Yep.
Take a look at them, see if there's any questions in there, let me know. Otherwise, they'll be back for the second reading at the December board meeting, along with more that will be the first reading. So we've been working on policies, so coming your way.
All right, thank you, Steve. We'll move to the resolution establishing combined polling places. Member Adamick introduced the following resolution and moved its adoption. And there at the top, it says I need a second. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
All right. This is a resolution establishing combined polling places for multiple precincts and designating hours during which the polling places will remain open for voting for school district elections not held on the day of a statewide election. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 42, State of Minnesota as follows. That pursuant to Minnesota statutes 205A.11, the precincts and polling places for school district elections are those precincts or parts of precincts located within the boundaries of the school district, which have been established by the cities or towns located in whole or part within the school districts. The board hereby confirms those precincts and polling places so established by those municipalities. And pursuant to Minnesota statute 205A11, the board may establish a combined polling place for several precincts for school district elections not held on the day of statewide election. Each combined polling place must be a polling place that has been designated by a county or municipality. The following combined polling places are established to serve the precincts specified for all school district special and general elections not held on the same day as a statewide election. I'm kind of going to, that will be my summary of the rest. I'll go to the bottom here. So basically this is that we can combine polling places, but those must be approved or established by the city or municipality. Are there any questions before we vote?
Madam Chair, does
Yes.
the county, like you said, does the county establish that? We're just kind of being a second group that establishes it?
Yes, I believe it is established by the county, isn't it, Steve?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Hearing no other questions, we'll vote. Brad,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Julie? Yes. And myself, yes. So that resolution is passed. Back to front here. Bear with me one moment. Okay, resolution 2.6, canvassing returns of votes of school district general election. Let me grab that. Okay. Pursuant to due call and notice thereof, a business meeting of the School Board of Independent School District 42, State of Minnesota, was duly held in said school district the 12th day in November 2020 at 5 o'clock for the purpose and part of canvassing its general election. The following members were present: Kathy Adamick, Jay Spillum, Julie Miller, Mark Gerby, and Brad Lager. Members absent were Sharon Ballou. Member Adamick moved the adoption of the following resolution. Resolution canvassing returns of votes of school district general election. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 42, State of Minnesota as follows. It is hereby found, determined, and declared that the general election of the voters of the school district held on November 3rd, 2020, in conjunction with the state general election, was in all respects duly and legally called and held. As specified in the attached abstract and return of votes cast, a total of, and I'll just read the votes here. Julie Lemire received 5,889 votes. Doug Dahlberg, 5,653 votes. Kelsey Herzog, 4,960 votes. And the motion for the adoption of the following resolution needs a second. Is there a second to this resolution?
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
Okay, second by Brad. Any questions before we vote? Brad,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So the resolution has passed and been adopted. Okay, we will go to yet another resolution. This resolution is authorizing the issuance of certificates of election and directing the school district clerk to perform other election-related duties. Grab that one. Pursuant to due call and notice thereof, a business meeting of the School Board of Independent District 42, State of Minnesota, was held in said school district the 12th day of November 2020 at 5 o'clock. The following members were present: Brad Lager, Mark Gerby, Jay Spillum, Julie Lemire, and Kathy Adamick, and Sharon Ballou was absent. Member Adamick introduced the following resolution and moved its adoption. Whereas the school board has canvassed the general election for school board members held in conjunction with the state general election on November 3rd, 2020. Now therefore be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 42, State of Minnesota, as follows. The chair and clerk are hereby authorized to execute certificates of election on behalf of the School Board of Independent School District 42 to the following candidates: Julie Lemire, Doug Dahlberg, and Kelsey Herzog, who have received a sufficiently large number of votes to be elected to fill the vacancies on the board caused by the expiration of term on the first Monday in January next following the election based on the results of the canvass. The certificate of election shall be in substantially the form attached hereto. After the time of contesting the election has passed and the candidate has filed all campaign financial reports required by Minnesota Statutes Chapter 211A, the clerk of the school board is hereby directed to deliver a certificate to each person entitled thereto personally or by certified mail. The clerk is hereby directed to enclose with the certificate a form of acceptance of oath and office in substantially the form attached. The motion for the adoption of the foregoing resolution needs a second.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second by Brad. Any questions or discussions before we vote? Okay, we'll vote. Brad,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
and myself, yes. So this resolution has passed. I think that might take us to the adjournment. Am I missing
Madam-
anything?
Madam Chair, I want to
Yes.
offer my congratulations to Julie and Kelsey and Doug, and welcome them to the school board beginning on January 4th. So congratulations.
Wouldn't it be nice if we had already reached our
Yes,
climax and was coming
yes,
down?
it would be. Yes.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
This will just do all at once. All those in favor signify by saying aye. I
Aye.
think that motion was carried.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Thanks, Mark and Steve, for waiting for me to get home and
You bet.
get in here.